Welcome to The Debate. You know, when we look back at the history of slavery, the imagery that comes to mind is always incredibly visceral.
Right, you immediately picture the rusted iron chains.
Exactly. We think of the physical violence of the lash or, the desperate cries from the hulls of ocean-crossing ships. It is a system of control that is just brutally legible.
Yeah, you are in a cage and you know exactly who holds the key.
Right. But what happens when the cage becomes entirely invisible?
Oh, that is the terrifying question.
Right? What happens when those iron chains are replaced by algorithmic conveniences or instant digital credit and the seamless delivery of exactly what you desire before you even consciously know you desire it?
Yeah.
Today, we're looking at a fascinating, if not terrifying, idea from our source material. Are we all participating in our own subjugation? The assertion is that modern consumerism has evolved into an inescapable, highly engineered form of slavery that manipulates human biology and psychology to extract wealth.
It's a heavy premise.
It really is. And I will be arguing that this consumer matrix is a deliberately orchestrated top-down architecture of control designed by economic elites to break worker solidarity and replace physical subjugation with, financial chains.
And I will be taking the opposing view. While the outcomes might look and feel like a prison, I'll argue the system is fundamentally driven from the bottom up.
Okay.
I'll be making the case that it is our own neurobiology and the evolutionary demands of the hedonic treadmill that fuel this machine, meaning what we are experiencing is a voluntary surrender rather than some engineered oppression.
Well, let's lay the groundwork for this, because to really understand the system we are in today, we have to look at how we got here. If we trace the historical trajectory outlined in the material, there is a clear structural hijacking of society.
A hijacking?
Yes, a hijacking. We had this brief golden window in the post-World War II era, specifically the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And during that time, industrial society was designed around the worker. It was a fairly legible, equitable social contract.
Well, equitable for some, certainly, but structurally it was a very different economic model.
Exactly. Structurally, a single blue-collar worker with a standard factory job could buy a home, support a family, own a car, and, send their children to college without taking on a crushing burden of debt.
Right, the prosperity was distributed.
It was, but that distributed prosperity became a massive obstacle to the infinite capital accumulation that the economic elite desired. So we saw a deliberate historical pivot in the late 1970s and early 1980s, spearheaded by neoliberal figures like Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher.
And you view that pivot as a malicious conspiracy?
I view it as an intentional strategy to destroy collective class solidarity. Thatcher famously summarized the strategy with chilling precision. She said, "Economics are the method, the object is to change the heart and soul."
Which is quite a quote.
It wasn't an accident. By shifting our primary identity from worker, which implies a collective we who must stand together for mutual rights, to consumer, which isolates us into a competitive I, the elite ensured they could maximize corporate accumulation.
I see.
They effectively neutralized the risk of violent, collective uprisings by making us obsess over what we could buy.
Look, ascribing this massive tectonic shift in global human behavior entirely to the intentional malice of a shadowy financial elite is, it's a flawed framework.
You think so?
I do. It gives far too much credit to a few politicians, and it completely ignores human nature. To really understand what happened, we need to look back much further than the 1980s. The source material explicitly references the 16th century philosopher Etienne de la Boétie and his concept of voluntary servitude.
For the audience, maybe break down what La Boétie was arguing there.
Sure. La Boétie asked a fundamental, profound question. Why do millions of people willingly submit to a tyrannical system when the ruler possesses no supernatural power? The ruler is just one person.
Right.
The answer is that the power of the system is granted entirely by the consent of the governed. It happens through habit, and more importantly, through the lure of small, immediate comforts. The true mechanism of control isn't a top-down conspiracy hatching a boardroom. It is human biology. It's what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill.
The idea that we can never truly be satisfied?
Right. It's the psychological equivalent of walking up a down escalator. As soon as you acquire that new car or that new smartphone, your brain's baseline for happiness adjusts upward.
So the thrill just fades.
Exactly. The thrill fades, leaving you exactly as unsatisfied as you were before. So you have to keep walking just to stay in the same place emotionally. Corporations aren't tyrannical wardens operating a sophisticated prison. They are simply hyper-efficient algorithms that have optimized themselves to feed our innate, evolutionary cravings for variable rewards and social status.
But
The tragedy here is our own biological complicity. We are the ones demanding the product.
I hear that, but let's look at the actual outcomes of that so-called complicity. If this were just an organic, bottom-up evolutionary quirk, just humans being humans, we wouldn't see the staggering, perfectly engineered wealth transfer that has defined the last 4 decades.
Well, the inequality is massive. I don't dispute the numbers.
Right. The numbers alone constitute evidence of a structural design. Think about the timeline here. From 1978 up to 2024, CEO pay didn't just grow, it skyrocketed by 1,094%.
It's an astronomical figure.
And I want to put that in perspective for everyone listening. In that exact same window, the real income of the average worker, adjusted for inflation, crept up a mere 18.5%.
Yeah.
And it's not because people got lazy. Worker productivity surged by over 75% in that time. That productivity, the sweat equity of the working class, was systematically siphoned upward.
But is that a conspiracy or just the market?
Well, in 1965, a CEO made about 21 times the average worker. By 2021, that ratio was a staggering 408 to 1, and it remains near 281 to 1 today.
Right.
We'll get to most exploitative sectors like auto parts manufacturing. At companies like AutoZone, average workers are scraping by on a little over $9,000 a year, while the CEO pulls in over $17 million. This isn't biological destiny. This is financial engineering.
Okay, but when you say financial engineering, what specifically are you pointing to as the mechanism?
The weapon of choice is the stock buyback. Let's explain what a stock buyback actually does here. Instead of taking $1 billion in profit and putting it into higher wages for workers or, long-term safety investments, a company uses that cash to buy its own shares off the open market.
Shrinking the pool of shares.
Exactly. That shrinks the number of shares out there, making the remaining ones more valuable. And since CEO compensation is heavily tied to stock price, it conveniently enriches the executives while doing absolutely nothing to improve the company or help the workers. Look at Norfolk Southern as the prime example of this systemic cruelty.
Oh, right, the East Palestine train derailment.
Yes. In the 4 years prior to that catastrophic chemical derailment in Ohio, Norfolk Southern poured $10 billion into stock buybacks.
10 billion?
$10 billion. That is $3 billion more than they spent on safety upgrades and long-term investments. They hollowed out their safety infrastructure to inflate their stock. And after the disaster, after destroying a community, the CEO received a 37% raise in 2023. That is systemic top-down cruelty, reducing human beings to cheap, replaceable gears in a machine built purely for capital accumulation.
I come at it from a different way. I completely acknowledge the gross inequality you're pointing to. I mean, what happened with Norfolk Southern is indefensible. The wealth gap is a reality.
Okay.
But the mechanism that sustains this extraction across the broader consumer economy, the reason the system works so flawlessly, relies entirely on our psychological consent. We aren't being physically forced onto the factory floor with a whip. We are opting in.
Wait, how can you call stagnant wages and engineered corporate greed opting in?
To understand how, we have to look at the neurobiology of the modern consumer. Dr. Anna Lembke, who is referenced in the material, refers to smartphones as modern hypodermic needles. And that is not hyperbole.
It's a strong image.
It is. They are continuous delivery devices for digital dopamine injected directly into our central nervous systems 24 hours a day. The platforms and corporations you mention rely heavily on the psychological principle of variable rewards.
Which is basically the slot machine effect.
Precisely. It's the exact same mechanism. You don't know when you pull the lever, or refresh your feed if you're going to get a highly entertaining video, a notification that someone liked your photo, or, a massive flash sale discount.
Right, the anticipation.
Yes, that uncertainty triggers an enormous dopamine release just from the anticipation alone. And here is where the biology traps us. What happens when you expose the human brain to a constant tsunami of dopamine? You get neuroadaptation.
So the brain actually changes its physical structure?
Yes. The brain protects itself from the flood by reducing its dopamine receptors. You build a tolerance. To just feel normal, you have to consume faster, buy bigger, scroll longer.
Wow.
The extraction works brilliantly, yes, but it works because we are the ones constantly reaching for the drug. The system simply manufactures the supply for an insatiable biological demand.
I see why you think that. But let me give you a different perspective. What you're describing as opting in is actually the most insidious parts of the engineering. The genius of this modern matrix is precisely that it replaces external discipline with internal compulsion. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han diagnoses this perfectly in his concept of the burnout society.
Which is a fascinating framework. He argues we've moved away from a disciplinary model, correct?
Right. If you look at the 18th and 19th centuries, we lived in a disciplinary society. The control was external. You had the factory boss, the strict institution, the literal overseer.
Sure.
The paradigm was must do. And because it was must do, it bred resistance. The oppressor was visible, so the workers knew who to strike against. But the 21st century system shifted the paradigm to can do. We now live in an achievement society characterized by toxic hustle culture.
Right. We are told we can be anything, do anything, achieve anything.
Exactly. And it brainwashes us into believing we are the entrepreneurs of our own lives. We think we are absolutely free to optimize every second of our time to build our personal brands, but we are actually just self-exploiting. We are grinding ourselves into dust to meet the productivity and consumption demands of the capitalist system. Think about the last time you felt guilty for just relaxing on a Sunday because you weren't working on a side hustle or optimizing your time.
Yeah, that's a very common feeling.
Han argues that guilt isn't natural, it's engineered. And here is the truly brilliant defense mechanism of this top-down control. When individuals inevitably collapse from burnout, from exhaustion, from clinical depression, they don't blame the rigged, exploitative economic system, they blame themselves.
They internalize the failure.
Yes. They think they just weren't resilient enough or didn't hustle hard enough. That internalized guilt is the perfect shield for the elite. The chains are internal, yes, but they were forged from the top down.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. You are removing agency from the individual entirely and placing all the blame on an abstract, omnipotent elite. Let's look at sociological data from the material that proves this is a phenomenon of peer-to-peer social competition, not top-down mind control.
Okay, what data are you looking at?
Take Vietnam. It's a rapidly developing economy experiencing this exact consumer shock right now. Between 2013 and 2022, their household debt to GDP ratio exploded from 28% to 50%.
That's a huge jump.
It is. Is that because a shadowy global elite forced the Vietnamese middle class to take on debt? No. It's driven by intense horizontal social pressure.
But that pressure is manufactured by marketing.
Designer lipstick purely to project a false aura of wealth and status on Facebook and Instagram.
I mean, sure, social media plays a part.
They are trying to outcompete their neighbors. This is driven by human vanity and the ancient evolutionary desire for social hierarchy. And look at how it's facilitated today. By 2025, TikTok Shop saw a 93% growth in Vietnam, capturing nearly 40% of the market. They use what's called shoppertainment.
Shoppertainment, blurring the line between content and commerce.
It collapses the distance completely. When the brain is relaxed, when you are simply scrolling and laughing at a video, the algorithm slips in a frictionless purchase prompt. This isn't an elite forcing self-exploitation. It is human vanity running rampant. We are voluntarily trading long-term stability for short-term digital status because our biology rewards us for perceived social elevation.
Wait, let me stop you there.
Because that algorithm you just described, that frictionless path to consumption, is about to become entirely autonomous, stripping away the very agency you claim we still have.
How so?
Well, if we're already struggling with the peer-to-peer social pressure you mentioned in Vietnam, what happens when that pressure is no longer driven by human vanity, but fully automated by AI?
You're talking about the shift toward agentic AI.
Yes, we are standing on the precipice of a technological shift that will close the trap completely. By 2026, forecasts predict that 40% of enterprise applications will be driven by autonomous AI agents. For those listening, let's break down what that actually means. We aren't talking about passive chatbots like the generative AI we use today that waits for you to type a prompt.
Right.
Agentic AI acts independently. It understands context, it plans multi-step processes, and it executes them without human supervision.
It essentially operates on your behalf.
Exactly. But it will have access to a terrifying amount of your personal data, your browsing habits, your credit history, even your biological cycles if you wear a smartwatch. These AI agents will be able to predict micropsychological states before you even consciously register them.
That is unnerving.
Imagine an AI detecting a microscopic drop in your dopamine levels, or recognizing a behavioral pattern that indicates you are feeling lonely after a bad day at work. The AI will automatically execute purchases to self-soothe you. It will book a healing retreat or buy that luxury item and charge your card before you even verbalize the desire.
That's the complete erasure of the consumer's autonomy.
It certainly removes the friction from the purchase.
And let's not forget the physical reality underpinning this entire digital illusion. This supposedly frictionless, algorithmic convenience that we enjoy in the West is literally built on actual physical slavery. The source material highlights the story of Nasreen Sheikh and the horrifying realities of the fast fashion supply chain on the India-Nepal border.
Her story is incredibly harrowing. It is the dark, physical truth of the Matrix. We are talking about children working 12 to 15 hours a day in dark, toxic slums for less than $2 a shift. They are locked in rooms making the very garments that TikTok Shop is pushing to consumers in Vietnam and the US.
It's awful.
And the legal frameworks meant to stop this, a complete failure. A decade after the UK Modern Slavery Act was introduced, it is widely recognized as fundamentally toothless at stopping abuse within massive retail supply chains.
Because the corporations find loopholes.
Yes, corporations completely bypass the intent of the law with sophisticated greenwashing and hollow corporate social responsibility campaigns. They audit a few clean factories while subcontracting the actual labor to the slums. So what we have is a structurally complete system, digital enslavement at the top of the pyramid for the consumer, funded and subsidized by brutal physical child labor at the bottom.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that this technological endgame you're describing actually proves the limits of the system rather than its omnipotence?
Wait, how does a completely autonomous AI system show a limit?
Because yes, agentic AI represents the ultimate reduction of consumer friction. It will anticipate and execute. And I want to be clear, the realities of the global supply chain, particularly the horrors Nasreen Sheikh survived and exposes on the India-Nepal border, are a deep moral failing that cannot be minimized.
Absolutely.
But the AI is not a sentient warden, and human biology is not infinitely malleable. Because the system is built on our biology has the power to naturally reject it when the threshold of exhaustion is reached. And we're already seeing that rejection happen organically.
Really? Where are we seeing people reject convenience?
Take a look at the 2026 trend data around human connection and dating. The commodification of romance, swiping left and right on human beings as if they were items on an assembly line, has reached a breaking point.
Oh, I've seen some of this data.
Yeah, 93% of users report severe emotional fatigue from algorithmic dating platforms. The gamification has completely drained them. And what is the response? Over 60% of surveyed users are actively demanding what they call slow dating.
Slow dating, meaning moving away from the apps.
Meaning demanding transparent, authentic, deliberate, emotional connections that completely reject the gamified high-speed algorithms. They are opting out. This is profound because it proves my point.
How so?
It proves that despite the overwhelming technological pressure, despite the agentic AI and the constant dopamine bombardment, humans possess the internal biological capacity to recognize when a need is false. We can sense the spiritual emptiness of the system, and we have the power to sever that dopamine loop. We don't need to overthrow a global financial elite to reclaim our humanity. We just need to listen to our own biological exhaustion and stop swiping. But that exhaustion is exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that 93% of people are spiritually and emotionally drained is the defining symptom of a system that has successfully commodified every aspect of human life. It means the system is working as designed until we break.
Well,
To summarize my position, modern consumerism is not an accident of evolution. It is a carefully engineered systemic prison. It intentionally replaced the physical chains of the past with the invisible chains of financial debt and algorithmic manipulation. It shattered worker solidarity to isolate us into hyper-competitive consumers.
I hear you.
It utilizes financial weapons, like we discussed with stock buybacks, to extract immense wealth from the working class, leaving us with a stagnant 18.5% wage growth while the elite reap a 1,000% increase. And it hides its darkest realities, the literal physical slavery still operating in its supply chains, behind targeted marketing and greenwashing. Recognizing this deliberate structural architecture of control is the only way we can begin to understand the reality of the matrix we are living in.
And to summarize my perspective, I maintain that focusing entirely on an external, engineered architecture fundamentally misses the reality of human behavior. The prison you describe is constructed primarily from the raw materials of our own biological desires, our vanity, and the vulnerability of the human brain to the hedonic treadmill.
Right.
The algorithms and the AI are certainly powerful, but they only have power because we voluntarily plug our nervous systems into them in pursuit of the next hit of digital dopamine. True liberation, therefore, does not require defeating some grand economic conspiracy. It requires exercising profound internal discipline. It is about an internal revolution, recognizing the falseness of the desires being fed to us, stepping off the treadmill, and understanding that true freedom is found not in acquiring more, but in mastering the intellect to desire less.
You know, what is fascinating, though, is that regardless of whether this system was imposed from the top down by an elite class or whether it emerged from the bottom up through our own biological vulnerabilities, we both clearly recognize the profound spiritual exhaustion it has caused.
Oh, absolutely. The commodification has crept into the most sacred spaces of the human experience. When education becomes nothing more than a calculated return on investment, when the sacred act of motherhood becomes a performance to be judged on Instagram, and when romantic love is reduced to an algorithmic swipe on a screen, the human soul is quite literally being hollowed out.
It really is. It leaves us with a critical question for everyone listening. We started by picturing the iron chains of the past. Those chains were so easy to see, so easy to identify as an instrument of control.
Yeah.
Now look at the device in your pocket. Think about the seamless deliveries arriving at your door, the invisible debt accumulating in the background, the algorithms predicting your every mood. Are we truly experiencing the pinnacle of human convenience and freedom? Or have we simply polished our chains until they reflect our own desires so perfectly that we no longer realize we are wearing them?
That's the question.
We will leave that for you to decide. There is so much more to explore in how we assign value to our lives in this era. Thank you for joining us.